Salam and welcome. Thank you for joining me in part number 189 in this fabulous book, Muhammad Sal'la'laa'hu A'layhi Was'sallam, his life based on the earliest sources. And we are busy now. We finished chapter 59, the trench, and we are now busy with chapter number 60, which is now the siege of Medina, which is now the beginning. The army of Quraysh from Mecca have now arrived. The Ghatafan have arrived, the Quraysh have arrived, all the other allies have arrived. Medina is now surrounded. No food can go out, no food can come in, no water can go out, no water can come in, no traveling, no one can go out. Medina is an entire blockade. No one can move out. If anyone moves out, they will be eliminated. Right, so let's now start with this. And remember, very difficult times because Medina is going through a drought, a famine, food is scarce, people are starving, and then there's great hardship and great difficulty. So now we're looking at Medina. The armies have arrived. So you have the Quraysh, you have the Ghatafan, we have the Sulaim, the tribe of Kinana, tribe of Asad, tribe of Murrah, tribe of Shuja. They're all here. The trench is here. All the people are inside. It is now the beginning of very, very difficult time ahead. So scarcely had the trench been finished. It took them 6 days in total when news came that the army of Quraysh were approaching down the valley of Akik and were now a little to the southwest of the town, a little bit to the southwest. So this is the west. The army was already here. They were already coming towards the trench. They did not know the trench was there, right? They were not aware of it. While Ghatafan and the other tribes of Najd were moving towards Uhud from the east, and Ghatafan were coming meanwhile from this side, Quraysh were coming from this side, they were all going to meet here in front. All the outlying houses of the oasis had already been evacuated and the tenants housed within the defenses. The Prophet ﷺ now, so it means all the people who are outside these outlying areas, all the places in the farms, they were all brought within Medina, the city itself, and they were all, even the animals, all the sheep, the camels, everything was brought from the outlying areas. So no one was here in the outlying areas. All the people in the farm, the orchards were all brought within the city of Medina, so they were safe within this enclosure itself. So all the outlying houses of the oasis had already been evacuated and the tenants housed within the defenses. The Prophet ﷺ now gave orders for every woman and child to be allocated a place in one or other of the upper rooms of the fortresses, so there were double-story structures. The Prophet ﷺ Then the Prophet ﷺ encamped with his men, about 3,000 in all, on the chosen site, which we mentioned was this Mount Sal. So he sat there at a very strategic point where you could have the view of the entire army over there and you could see exactly what is going on in the city of Medina. His tent of red leather, so subhanAllah, his tent was the color of red leather, was pitched at the foot of Mount Sal. Aisha radiallahu anha and Salama radiallahu anha and Zainab radiallahu anha then took turns to be with him there, right? So each day a different wife would come there, Aisha, Salama and Zainab. The Meccan army and their allies pitched separate camps not far from Uhud. So Uhud is just here, further north, and so the Quraysh, Ghatafan, all the tribes, they now surrounded the weak spot of Medina. This is the weak spot of Medina. They came, but when they came there, the Quraysh were very unhappy. Because what did they find? They found that all the crops were harvested. There was no food for the animals, right? So Quraysh were dismayed to find that the crops of the oasis had already been harvested. Their camels would have to subsist on the acacias of the valley of Akik. Meantime, the camels of Ghatafan were living on the two kinds of tamarisk which grow in the thickened parts of the plain near Uhud. But there was nothing for the horses of either army except the fodder which they had brought with them. It was therefore imperative to make an end of the enemy as quickly as possible. So now the Quraysh army were now battling now. They said, firstly they came across this thing called a trench. They say in Arab warfare we've never understood such a thing like this. So they were very confused and baffled. And now they got a problem with food for the animals. They say, this thing has got to end as quickly as possible. We need to find a solution to get over this trench because our animals are not going to be able to survive in these harsh conditions. We need food for them. So let's get in there, get this thing over and done with. And then, but the majority of the people, the Ghatafan people, the people of Kanana, Asad, all these tribes, they came mainly for the booty. They wanted the money. They were mainly mercenaries. They said, okay, they said, you can plunder. The Quraysh told them, you plunder Medina, whatever you find is yours. Take it, we are giving you gifts. As long as we get rid of the problem of the Muslims and the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, they said, you can go for the riches, right? So they wanted the wealth. So they said, we're not going to come here and suffer. We want our money. Let's get this over and done with quickly. So it was therefore imperative to make an end of the enemy as quickly as possible. And with this intention, the two armies joined together and advanced in the direction of the city. Abu Sufyan, remember Abu Sufyan, he was now the de facto leader of the Quraysh, was now commander-in-chief, but by turns each of the various leaders was to have his day of honor in which he would direct the actual fighting. Khalid bin Walid and Ikramah the son of the late Abu Jahl, were again in command of the Meccan cavalry, and Amr was in Khalid's troop. As they approached, they were heartened to see the enemy camp in front of them outside the town. So as they were approaching from far, they could not yet see that there was a huge trench. They could just see on the hill, they could see Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's camp, the red tent sitting on the hill. So as they were coming close, they did not realize there's a big hole in the ground. They did not expect that. From far they saw, there's a tent there, the enemy camp is there. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam tent is there. Oh, this is easy going, this is easy peace, this is easy as pie. We are finishing class, but this afternoon we'll knock them, we'll be home already. So they thought this is an easy victory. So as they approached, they were now happy to see the enemy camp in front of them outside the town. They had been afraid that they would find them garrisoned behind the battlements, so they thought there would be huge fortresses and huge battlements waiting for them. But out in the open, they should be able to overwhelm them by sheer weight of numbers. So the Meccans are very happy. They say, hey, this is a good day for us. However, when they drew nearer, they were amazed to see that a broad and huge trench, a hole in the ground, lay between them and the archers who were lined the whole way along its further side. So as they were approaching, they saw Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam camp there. They said, this is easy. But then they saw this huge trench, and on this side here, all the Muslims, 1,000 of them, were standing with their arrows and the archers and just waiting for them. So now they said, oops, what is going on now? They're confused. They've never seen a trench in their life. Their horse would only be able to reach it with difficulty, and then would come the greater difficulty of crossing it. Even now, a shower of arrows told them that they were already within range of the enemy, so they drew back to a safer distance. So they couldn't even come close to the trench, because an arrow could go to 50 or 60 meters, so they had to stay 50, 60, 100 meters away, otherwise they're going to be in the face of the arrows shot from the side here. So they had to be kept a distance away. So it was basically a stalemate. They couldn't even allow their horses to come near. They couldn't even experiment to gauge how big is the trench, how deep is the trench, to try and figure it out. They couldn't even get close to it to try and understand what kind of a trench is this. They had to be at a distance away just to say, you know what, we've got a massive problem here. What do we do with this problem? So the rest of the day was spent, so the Quraysh spent the rest of the day in consultation, and finally they decided that their best hope lay in the possibility of forcing the Muslims to withdraw their troops in large numbers from the north of the town in order to defend it elsewhere. If the trench was sufficiently unmanned, they said, let's cause a diversion. Let's cause a diversion somewhere else. So the army must go somewhere else, and then we can attack them from here. If the trench was sufficiently unmanned, it should not be too difficult to cross. Their thoughts turned towards the Bani Qurayza, whose fortresses blocked the approach to Medina from the southeast. On the southeast were the tribe of Banu Qurayza, the Jewish tribe. And according to the agreement, Huyay of the Bani Nadir had come from Khaybar to join the army, and he now pressed his services on Abu Sufyan as an ambassador to his fellow Jews, assuring him that he could easily persuade them to break their pact with Muhammad Sal'la'laa'hu Was'sal'lam. And once their help had been secured, the town could be attacked from two directions simultaneously. Abu Sufyan gladly accepted his offer and urged him to lose no time. So let's just pause there for a moment. I've got some diagrams which I just need to know what I've done with it. Okay, here's it. Right. There's a fellow, and we just need to remember these names very clearly. Right. Let's look at this brief little diagram over here. Let me just find a pen quickly. I'll just switch off this fan. I just leave this fan on because of my breathing problem. Right. First, okay, I'm gonna go through each of these writing here, so don't get confused. I like to make things simple, so let's go slowly, step by step. There are two colors you will see on this picture. One is purple, one is green. Green refers to the Muslims, purple refers to the enemy, the Quraysh and their allies. Right? Simple. So rule number one, green is Muslim, purple is enemies. Even in the next picture which I will show you, green is Muslim, purple is the enemy. Right? We understand that part is easy. On the south, at the bottom is Mecca. So here is Mecca. Mecca is the enemy, and that is the Quraysh. So Mecca at the moment is the enemy, so it's purple, and it's Quraysh, and the leader of Mecca is Abu Sufyan. Right? So we got Abu Sufyan over here. So that's the one name you must remember, which is Abu Sufyan. Right? So that we know is that's the one enemy. The other enemy that you must remember this name is the Ghatafan tribe. Right? That's the second enemy, and this is a Jewish tribe that were exiled, they were expelled from Medina because of the treachery. And the leader of this tribe, remember this name, his name is Huyay. He is a Jew who is instrumental in causing all of this problem. His name is Huyay, right? Now, so these are the enemy, and other tribes are also enemy around Medina, right? Now, inside Medina, who do we have? We have three categories of people. We have the Muslims, we have the hypocrites, and we have the Jews, right? The Muslims are made up of the Ansar and the Muhajirin. Then we have number two is the hypocrites. Number three, we have the Jews known as the Banu Qurayza. And the chief of the Jews, he is known as Ka'b. So just remember, there's just three names to remember. One name is, remember, the leader of the enemy, the leader of the Quraysh is Abu Sufyan. The leader of the enemy Jews is known as Huyay, that's Banu Nadir. And the leader of the Banu Qurayza within the city of Medina is known as Ka'b. Now this is what happened. After the battle of Uhud, this guy over here, this Huyay, he then went to Mecca to Abu Sufyan and he said, you know what, let's finish off Medina once and for all. Let's get rid of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam because we want to have all of this land for ourselves and we can get rid of this problem. So he instigated Quraysh, he instigated Abu Sufyan, and he told him, you know what, I will go to all the tribes and I will encourage them to help you out. So then Huyay, this fellow here, Huyay, he then went to the Ghatafan tribe and he told them, I will give you an entire year's harvest of dates if you come into this war. And these Ghatafan were mercenaries. They didn't care about Medina, they didn't care about Mecca. They said, okay, you want to give us money, you give us dates, okay, yeah, we join in the war. So Huyay managed to encourage people like Ghatafan and other tribes to join in the Confederacy. That's why a huge Confederate army was formed. But meanwhile, there was relative peace in Medina. Remember, there was a constitution of Medina. It was a pact, a constitution which said that all of us must live together in harmony and peace. That means the Ansar, the Muhajirin, who are the Muslims, must live together with the hypocrites, must live together with Jews. We are all within the city of Medina, and we sign a pact that if Medina is attacked from an enemy from outside, we all going to stand together. So initially they all stood together. They say, you know what, we are one tribe, we are one city, we are all citizens of the same country, Medina, and we're not going to allow anyone else to interfere with us. Right? So far, so good. But then what happened? The same fellow Huyay, right? So now here are the three main tribes. This blue part, that is a trench. This is a trench. That we have the Ghatafan tribe, we have the Quraysh tribe, and we have the other allies. One of this fellow, this Huyay, this Huyay I spoke about, Huyay, he then went to the Banu Qurayza. He went to the Banu Qurayza and he started changing their mind. So eventually, and we'll come to that part, where the Banu Qurayza then joined forces with the enemy. So initially, I'm referring to the Banu Qurayza as green over here, because initially they were green, they were supporting the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. When they changed their mind, then they became purple, they became the enemy. So now Medina was under attack from outside and from inside. Clear. But keep that at the back of your mind. In the next episode, I will go through both of these charts again, and this one here about the siege of Medina. I will try and keep it as simple as possible. But once we understand it, it's fabulous. And then we'll understand how eventually the siege was then broken and how the enemies then started fighting with each other. Stay well, look after yourself. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.